Welcome back, friends. A gray jet roars down a short strip of road, nose rising fast, landing gear still hanging, and then in a heartbeat, it disappears into the clouds like it was never there. No massive airbase, no endless concrete runways, just a highway, a few fuel trucks, a small crew, and a fighter built from day one to survive the first hour of a real war. Now, here's the twist. This jet isn't American, French, or British. It's Swedish. And what's truly shocking isn't that Sweden built another fighter. They've been doing that for decades. The real story is what this new Gripen E is trying to do to the entire idea of air power itself. It's not chasing size or cost or even pure stealth. It's built to win through information, survive through mobility, and fight faster than the enemy can react, without needing billion-dollar bases that can be wiped out in minutes. This is where the old concept of air superiority starts to break down. Because by the end of this video, you'll see why the Gripen E feels less like a traditional jet and more like a flying software system designed for modern war. And in NATO's new northern front line, that difference could matter more than stealth coding ever will. Because in 2024, Sweden didn't just upgrade its air force, it joined NATO, and overnight, the mission changed. Now it's not just about defending Sweden, it's about holding the line across the Baltic, the Arctic, and the fragile gaps between allied defenses, where the real question is simple. When missiles start falling, can your jets keep flying? That's the reality we're stepping into. And before we go deeper, take a second to like the video and subscribe, because more than 98% of you are watching without subscribing, and your support is what keeps these deep, no-fluff breakdowns coming. Now here is the aircraft. Gripen, named after the mythical griffin, a creature that is half lion and half eagle. Sweden chose that name for a reason. A small country doesn't survive by being the biggest. It survives by being hard to kill, fast to move, and costly for any enemy to fight. During the Cold War, Sweden didn't just think it might be attacked, they expected it. So they built an entire defense system around survival. Jets were designed to operate from scattered locations, not just big air bases. Fighters could land on a highway, refuel, reload, and take off again in minutes. Ground crews worked with minimal tools, often in rough conditions. In Sweden's mindset, a road can be a runway, and a forest can be a hangar. That thinking never disappeared, it simply evolved. The older Gripen CD already followed this idea, but Gripen E takes it into a completely new era, an era of advanced radar, electronic warfare, and long-range combat. And this isn't just theory anymore. The program has moved into real-world service. In October 2023, Saab delivered the first series-produced Gripen E to Sweden's Defense Procurement Agency, FMV. Then, in October 2025, the first operational Gripen E was officially handed over to the Swedish Air Force. That moment is critical. It marks the shift from testing to real combat planning. Sweden is now moving from the older generation into a fighter built for a very different battlefield, where radar is no longer just a tool to see, it's a weapon. Where controlling the electromagnetic spectrum can be just as deadly as firing a missile. So what actually makes Gripen E different? Let's start with the radar. The Raven ES-05 ASA radar isn't just powerful, it's flexible. Unlike most fighters, its radar can physically reposition, giving it a much wider field of view, up to about 100 degrees on either side. In simple terms, the jet doesn't always have to point its nose directly at the target to track or engage it. That changes how the aircraft fights, allowing it to stay unpredictable, stay survivable, and still stay deadly at the same time. The radar can actually look far off to the sides, keeping track of threats without the jet always pointing straight at them. And if you're enjoying this, hit that like and subscribe button right now. It really helps the channel grow. Now, this might sound technical, so let's break it down in simple terms. Most fighter jets need to face you directly to get the clearest radar picture. But Gripen E is designed to see you without staring straight at you. That changes everything. In air combat, pointing your nose at someone can reveal your position and your intent. Gripen E can stay off-angle, stay harder to track, and still keep you locked. When you combine that with long-range missiles that need constant updates mid-flight, the radar becomes part of the entire kill chain. It's not just seeing the fight, it's shaping it. Now add the second big piece, electronic warfare. Gripen E isn't just built to avoid threats, it's built to mess with them, to confuse enemy sensors, to jam signals, to make the other side see the wrong picture. Saab's Arexis electronic warfare system is at the center of this. In simple words, the jet can detect who is watching it, understand what kind of threat it is, and then actively fight back in the invisible world of signals. This isn't Hollywood-style invisibility, it's something colder, more dangerous. Stealth tries to hide you. Electronic warfare makes you look unreliable. And in real combat, if the enemy can't trust what they're seeing, they hesitate, and hesitation gets you killed. Sweden clearly understands this. By 2025, they were already talking about upgrading Gripen's electronic warfare for NATO operations, which tells you one thing: the battle for the spectrum is not optional anymore, it's urgent. Now, step back and look at the strategy behind all this. Gripen E is built for a kind of war where bases don't survive long. The US model often relies on large, powerful air bases with huge logistics behind them. When that system works, it's overwhelming, but if those bases get hit, it becomes a vulnerability. Sweden assumes from day one that those bases will be targeted. So instead of relying on one big airfield, Gripen spreads out. It lands on roads, operates from hidden locations, refuels fast, reloads fast, and gets back in the air before the enemy can react. The idea is simple: never put all your jets in one place and never make that place easy to find. In a real Baltic conflict, the first wave of missiles won't just target soldiers, they'll aim to destroy runways, fuel supplies, command centers, and trap aircraft on the ground. Gripen E is designed to keep flying in that exact scenario. And this is where the bigger picture gets interesting. When Sweden officially joined NATO on March 7, 2024, the entire northern map changed overnight. Finland is already in. Norway is already in. Suddenly, the alliance isn't just stronger, it's more connected, more flexible, and much harder to break. And Gripen E is right at the center of that new front line. So before we go deeper into what this means for NATO's future air power, take a second to like the video and subscribe, because these kinds of deep, no-fluff breakdowns are exactly what we bring to this channel. The Baltic states are in, and suddenly the Baltic Sea is no longer just water on a map. It becomes a contested battlefield, surrounded almost entirely by NATO territory. And right in the middle of that geometry sits Sweden, not on the edge, but at the center. And Sweden isn't joining quietly. In March 2025, reports showed Sweden proposing to send up to 8 Gripen fighter jets to NATO air policing missions in Poland, something it had never done before outside its own borders. That's not just symbolic. That's Sweden saying, we're not observers anymore. We're inside the system. And once you're inside, interoperability isn't just a buzzword, it becomes survival. Gripen has already been training with US and NATO forces for years, flying in major exercises like Red Flag, even operating from bases like Nellis alongside American jets. So if you're sitting in Washington watching this, and you see a fighter built for survival, built around electronic warfare, wide-angle radar tactics, and fast software upgrades, you pay attention. Not because you want to replace your jets, but because it represents a completely different way of thinking. And this is where the story flips. For years, air power has been dominated by one idea: stealth. The fifth-generation race, the massive budgets, the question of who can afford it, who can maintain it, and most importantly, who can protect their air bases. But Gripen E asks a different question. What if stealth alone isn't the answer? What if the real advantage is resilience plus information plus tempo? What if the winning Air Force isn't the one that avoids every hit, but the one that can take a hit, move fast, keep its sensors alive, and keep flying even when the runway is damaged and the spectrum is under attack? That's a major shift in mindset, because in the Baltic and the High North, geography compresses everything. Distances are short, reaction times are short, missiles arrive fast. The gap between peacetime and full-scale conflict is razor thin, and Sweden knows that. That's why it's already looking beyond Gripen E. Saab has been tasked to continue studying future fighter systems from 2025 to 2027, meaning they're already planning the next step before this one is fully settled. Now, about the idea that the US is stunned, we don't need to invent dramatic quotes from inside the Pentagon. The reality is simpler, and in some ways more powerful. The US and its allies have trained with Swedish Gripens for years. Sweden is now fully integrating into NATO operations. And what's surprising isn't a headline, it's the logic behind the aircraft. Because Gripen E challenges a very expensive assumption that only massive budgets can build a survivable, high-end air force. Sweden is trying something different. It's trying to buy survivability through smart design, not just money. And yes, Gripen E is still expensive. Every modern fighter is. But it's built for a country that cannot afford to lose its air force on the ground in the first days of a war. Now picture this, because this is where it becomes real. A narrow Swedish road lined with pine trees, snow pushed to the sides, a camouflaged fuel truck tucked into the forest, a handful of technicians moving fast, no wasted motion. A Gripen lands, refuels, reloads, and takes off again within minutes. No massive base, no obvious target. This isn't a concept, this is doctrine. Sweden has trained for this for decades, and in a world where airbases can be destroyed in minutes, that kind of thinking might be one of the most powerful weapons in modern warfare. A Gripen rolls in, brakes hard, and before the engine even settles, the ground crew is already moving. Fuel lines connect, weapons go on, quick checks happen fast and clean. The pilot doesn't even step out. Within minutes, the jet is turning back toward the road, ready to launch again. That's the point. You don't need a massive airbase that looks like a cathedral. You need a habit. And that habit makes the enemy's job incredibly difficult. Because if your opponent can move jets around, operate from hidden locations, and keep launching missions again and again, your missiles get wasted faster, your surveillance gets confused, and your first strike loses its impact. This isn't theory. It's exactly the kind of resilience NATO is trying to build in Europe, especially after seeing how Russia has used missiles and drones to hit infrastructure in Ukraine. And this is where Sweden's timing really matters. Sweden isn't just defending its own airspace anymore. It's now part of NATO's wider deterrence system. And modern deterrence is simple in concept. Make the first strike fail. Because if the first strike fails, the entire political and military calculation changes from day one. Russia has spent years building long-range strike systems and layered air defenses designed to intimidate and delay NATO. Sweden's answer is different. It's basically saying, fine, but what if our aircraft don't stay where you expect them to be? Now, let's be honest about the limits. Gripen E is not a stealth aircraft in the same way something like the F-35 Lightning II is designed to be. It's a smaller, highly advanced multi-role fighter with powerful sensors and electronic warfare, but it still follows the laws of physics. It needs smart tactics, support systems, and careful planning to survive against high-end air defenses. So why is it still such a big deal? Because of how it's built, around software. Saab has made it clear that Gripen E is designed to be updated fast, sometimes in hours, with new data, new threat signatures, and new capabilities shared across the fleet almost instantly. That's the real shift. The aircraft is no longer just metal and engines, it's software and information. It's not something you upgrade once every 10 years, it's something that evolves constantly, almost like a smartphone. And yes, that comparison sounds strange, but the idea is real. The system is designed to keep up with changing threats in real time. And Sweden is backing that up with long-term support contracts, covering both older and newer Gripen versions through the late 2020s. Because the truth is, the boring stuff like maintenance and logistics is what actually keeps jets flying in war. Now zoom out again, because this isn't just about Sweden anymore. When countries choose a fighter jet, they're not just buying performance, they're buying partnerships, supply chains, and reliability in a crisis. And in 2025, Sweden pushed further into that space by finalizing a deal to sell Gripen fighters to Thailand, including newer variants with deliveries stretching toward 2030. That tells you something important. This isn't just a national defense idea anymore. It's becoming an exportable model of how to fight and survive in modern air warfare.
Reuters also reported that Thailand plans to buy up to 12 Gripen fighters over time, and that decision came after the United States declined Thailand's request for the F-35 Lightning II. That matters more than it seems, because it shows a clear pattern. Not every country gets access to top-tier stealth platforms, but many still want high-end capability, and that's where Gripen E fits in. It becomes a powerful, modern option that sits just outside that tight US export circle. So if you're in Washington watching this happen, you don't take it personally, you study it, because it tells you what countries believe they can actually afford, operate, and survive with in a real conflict. So what does all of this mean on a bigger level? It means Sweden is bringing something very specific into NATO, a fighter culture built around survival, efficiency, and adaptability. In peacetime, that shows up as joint exercises, air policing missions, and interoperability training. But in wartime, it becomes something much more serious, because every attacker has a simple plan: find the jets, destroy them on the ground, and end the air war before it even begins. Gripen E is designed to break that plan, to make that first strike messy, uncertain, and far less effective. And there's another layer here. Sweden isn't stopping at Gripen E. Through its defense agency, FMV, it's already funding future fighter studies through 2027. That tells you Sweden doesn't want to just buy aircraft, it wants to keep designing them. And in Europe, that matters. Fighter programs are not just about military power, they're about industry, independence, and long-term influence. You can already see hints of a bigger debate forming, where countries look at different paths for the next generation, and Sweden, through Saab, is positioning itself to be part of that conversation if larger programs struggle or slow down.
Now come back to that opening image. A jet lifts off from a road, vanishes into the clouds, and within minutes the ground crew is gone, like a moving unit that leaves no easy target behind. If you're an adversary looking at NATO's northern flank, Sweden joining the alliance changes the map, but Sweden fielding Gripen E changes how you plan. Not because the jet is invincible, but because it makes certainty expensive. And in modern warfare, certainty is everything. So the next time someone compares fighters like trading cards, this one is 5th gen, that one is 4th gen plus, remember what really matters. It's not what a jet can do on a perfect day from a perfect base. It's what it can do on the worst day, when the runway is damaged, the base is burning, the spectrum is jammed, and the alliance needs sorties right now. That is the battlefield Sweden designed for, and that's why Gripen E isn't just another fighter. It's a different way of thinking about survival in modern war. If you found this deep dive valuable, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more real, no-fluff breakdowns of military technology. The next few years are going to be critical for this program, and we'll be here to cover every step. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.